Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu, and I'm always scouting the globe looking for entrepreneurs, influencers, making a dent in today's society, doing good for the world. And so, in that light, I'm always interviewing people in the digital marketing, entrepreneurship space. And so today we have Russell, and he's the chief Marketect, which we'll find out what that is a little bit later. But this is going to be all from a business strategy standpoint, a high level overview, and it's going to be a fascinating discussion. And I'll introduce Rich and Russell and welcome him to the show. Welcome, Russell.
Well, thanks for having me, Chris. I'm kind of excited to talk to y'all. So, yeah, I am the chief Marketect, which is my made-up word of marketing architect.
Yeah. What's interesting is you call yourself the CEO's marketing Sherpa, and I get curious whenever I hear new terms or new phrases. So tell us more about what that is.
Yeah. So, well, my life has been one entrepreneurial roller coaster after another. My father raised me to be an entrepreneur, and I was that kid in, I think it was grade school. I was drawing my own comic books with Greek gods and trying to sell them. And over the last 30 some odd years, for better or not, I've started over 20 different businesses. And while that was a journey of insanity at some points, I've also been very lucky to start some very successful businesses and help a lot of people. And kind of the marketing Sherpa idea came about when my first child was born. My wife had just gotten out of a residency program, and we were, looking at each other and saying, "Hey, we don't want to be one of those nanny families where we just kind of check in with the kids at night. So one of us should stay home and try to raise this child." And she looked at me and said, "Well, I just spent 20 years in school. Don't look at me." So luckily I had a business at the time in the translation industry, which I could sell. So my partners bought me out of that one. And the Sherpa piece came in. For any entrepreneur out there, there's an amazing organization called Entrepreneurs Organization. And, during that 5 years when I was at home being Mr. Mom, I was just the go-to guy to go to lunch and get a coffee with. And everyone just loved to pick my brain on marketing stuff. So that's kind of where this CEO's marketing Sherpa came from. That's all I hang out with are CEOs and business owners. So,
yeah, it's quite interesting, and like I'm always looking at for the asymmetry and what they call asymmetry, and in marketing terms, it's ROI. It's like return. Like you want to put as little money and time as possible, and you want things to blow up, metaphorically. So, tell us how to reverse engineer your business for maximum marketing ROI.
Well, that's just it, and it's a result of this school of hard knocks that I've put myself through. I mean, sometimes if you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to have a little bit of a screw loose, I think, sometimes, because it is a difficult road. And it was actually right before COVID hit when I had, I love working on whiteboards. And I don't know if you've ever had this where you had a whiteboard epiphany. You just like the clouds part and the sunlight shines down and you're like, how come I've never seen this before? So I was working on a whiteboard with a couple other business owners, and I had this epiphany like, oh my gosh, how come no one has ever seen this before? You can actually reverse engineer your marketing to accomplish exactly what you said. I think in the world of marketing today, it's really hard to even define what marketing is. It's everything from, the stickers on your water bottle to if you have your employees wearing uniforms, to your website, to your social media, to even how you answer the telephone is technically marketing. And what didn't exist in the time was a toolkit that helps the business owner or the entrepreneur make those decisions around, hey, I have limited resources. I only have so much time, money, and opportunity. what is my toolkit that shows me what is the best utilization of those limited resources? And that is really what was missing. And that was really what jumped out at me on that whiteboard, was this ability that when you reverse engineer your marketing, you're really defining who is your most profitable client or customer, and then where do you deploy those resources in which to get your particular message in front of them, to get the greatest reaction or actually have them entertain the idea of doing business with you.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the history of the plan. I'm happy to walk you through what we do, but that's kind of the missing component in the marketing world today is this idea of really strategically decision making and a marketing blueprint, and having boundaries and knowing your numbers of, right, we have X number of dollars to put into this and X number of time or X amount of time to get results. What do we do here? And so we've developed a process to answer that question.
Yeah, interesting. And we'll go into more depth and detail. And so why do you think that most businesses struggle with marketing today? Is it team funding?
I think it's the overwhelm. Every time you turn around, there's some new marketing thingamabobby. There's either a network or a hack or there's social media. It's really just overwhelming. And so there's this idea, that's where this word, the marketech, came from, is, if you were to build your dream home, you wouldn't go out and hire a general contractor and hand them all your money and say, hey, go build my dream home, if you did not have a blueprint. They would have no idea what to build. They don't know what size of house or how many bedrooms, what direction it's facing, what are the materials, what are the budgets, any of that information. And, over the last 10, 15 years of working with CEOs, that's exactly what they do. They realize that in order to scale their business to the next level, they need to get help with marketing. And so they just go hire random gurus or freelancers or agencies and hand them a bunch of money and say, hey, I want to build my business. Go help me build my business. But nobody has this thing called a blueprint for marketing. And so the question becomes, all right, how do you make this blueprint?
And so in this blueprint, there's probably, a couple strategies. And how did they find the 1 to 2 marketing strategies that actually move the needle forward? And,
yeah, great question. Well, every business is unique. And so the next logical sequence is, for every unique business or offer or product or service, you're also going to have a unique customer that buys that product or service. And so what we did is, all your scientists are going to love this. I thought to myself, one of the things on that whiteboard epiphany was this idea of a master marketing equation. And what are those base elements that, regardless of how unique your business is in particular is, what are those elements that are going to work no matter what? Kind of the periodic table of marketing, if you will, right? The base elements of marketing. And so we created this formula. We treat it much like an algebraic equation. It's called the master marketing equation. And everyone's heard this, but what would be really valuable is to break it down and kind of think it through and understand its value. But marketing is a game of probabilities. There's no switch that says, hey, if you do this, you're going to get this. There's no binary relationship in marketing. So it's a lot like stock investing. You kind of got to do your research. You don't necessarily want to take that hot tip from your buddy at the bar. You want to stack the odds of success in your favor. That's really what we're doing. And so the master marketing equation is, if you can show, and tell me if you think this is right, Chris, or not. If you can show the right message to the right person at the right time and place, then chances are you're going to have successful marketing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So now if you look at this like a math equation, we call this RM plus RP plus RTP. The time and place are your strategies. That's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, blogs, whatever your marketing channels are.
Mhm.
But if you look at that and the message, both of those are 100% dependent on the right person for the business, right? So if you're, for instance, well, let's just use a doctor, for example, since I know a little bit about that world. But let's say you're a doctor and you're starting a concierge practice. Do you want to have the Medicaid patients as your patient population, or do you want to have the wealthy 1% as your population of choice? And either one's fine. You can do whatever you want to do. It's your choice to make. But what we do is we come in and say, hey, look, the first thing you want to do is be really clear on what is the business you want to build. But also the next step is, if you've been in business for any length of time, go back and look at where do you make the money. Every business out there has what's called the 80-20 principle, where typically you have 80% of your profits are driven from 20% of your clients. And it's true across everything. 80% of your headaches are probably driven from 20% of your clients. And 80% of your customer service, 80% of, there's always this 80-20. Well, we know marketing to be very expensive in time, money, and opportunity. So it stands to reason then, if you're going to define who is the right person for the business, why not define that person as the most profitable person for the business? And then, so that solves for the RP, who is the right person. And the logic goes, hey, look, we know that this is the most profitable client for the business. If we go out and get more of those, should things work out? And obviously, and then then it's a matter of just doing the hard part, right? Which is the part nobody wants to do. It's the unsexy part, but it's doing the customer research. In a concierge practice, you probably have a low turnover as far as the number of transactions. Like a B2B business would have this as well. It's not like an e-commerce business where you have hundreds of transactions every day. So obvious course of action there is pick up the telephone and have a conversation with them. And there's a specific format or a specific methodology for doing proper research, in that you don't want people to tell you what they think, but what they know and what they experience. And you don't want them to speculate. You want them to just basically relate their true experiences. And another truism in there is people don't know what they want. So you can't say, hey, when you're thinking about choosing a concierge doctor, what are you looking for? Because they don't know. But they can sure tell you what they don't want. And that's the approach we want to go. Yeah. So we do that research. They tell us what are the problems that I need solved. And then it's a one-to-one equation. It's, do you solve that problem for them? There's your messaging. There's your like all your marketing languages in there, your headlines, you record the calls, you transcribe them, and it's gold. And then while you're at it, you might as well ask them and say, hey, when you're trying to solve that problem, where do you go to solve it? So the Medicare patient is, probably going to certain places, Google or wherever, to try and find a concierge doctor that can help them. And the high net worth individual is probably going to different places. They're probably going to peer groups and, things like that. Well, there's your strategies, right? So if you want to go after the Medicare, Medicaid patient, put your marketing where they say they go to, and vice versa with the high net worth individuals.
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Part of marketing is also like having a team as well. So, what does the A team of marketing look like today?
That's a great question. So we build our businesses in groups of 3. I think the ideal marketing team is going to be led by, and the most important role is a copywriter. Not necessarily a content writer, but someone that knows how to write marketing and sales copy. Sales or copy that can move people to action. That's kind of the primary role and the most important role. And then I find that you actually probably should have a technical person that can connect, your website, your web pages, all your social media accounts, all the tracking and analytics, all that stuff. And then the third person is probably a designer, like a graphics person who can make everything look on brand and according to what you want. And if they have a background in conversion optimization where they know how to place buttons and things above the fold, that's great. But if you can get those three people, even in a part-time capacity, working together, you can get an amazing amount of marketing out there and completed.
Yeah. Yeah. Really interesting discussion. How do people contact you and follow you and reach out to you?
Yeah, it's interesting. So one of the things I argue against is doing marketing just for marketing's sake, right? So while we primarily invest our limited resources in our YouTube channel at Marketing Plan Formula. And then our website is same marketingplanformula.com. And what we run is basically an advanced marketing certification program for entrepreneurs, marketing professionals, anyone that wants to really learn how to move the needle with marketing. We basically teach them our 30 years of experience in this industry and teach them how to do this blueprinting process. And our graduates, we lovingly refer to as Marketech Pros. They're our marketing architects.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for all the listeners out there, let's thank Russell for coming onto the show. Really interesting, high level talk about marketing, getting the maximum ROI, different strategies. And be sure to follow him. He's on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube, as well as his website. All of these resources will be in the links and show notes. And with that, thanks so much for coming on to the podcast.
You betcha. It's a pleasure to be here. I'd love to continue the conversation with anyone that wants to. It's obviously what I love to talk about. So I'm happy to help anyone, anytime. My reason for being is to help the small entrepreneur. So that's where we get all the value in our lives, is us crazy people who take the chance and go start something. So thanks for having me, Chris.